Trust. You need to learn how to trust. Where do I go?
Oh, I don't want to. Talk to me. Talk to me.
You're gonna have a million things to do. You got so much ahead of you.
Don't talk like.
The Notebook 2004, Part 1 Long Review. The Notebook 2004 is a deeply emotional romantic drama directed by Nick Cassavetes and based on Nicholas Sparks's novel of the same name. And from the very beginning, the film establishes itself as a story about love, memory, separation, social differences, sacrifice, and the extraordinary power of a relationship that refuses to disappear with time. The movie begins in a quiet nursing home environment where an elderly man regularly visits an elderly woman who suffers from severe memory loss, and he begins reading a handwritten story to her from an old notebook. This opening immediately creates an atmosphere of mystery because the audience understands that the story being read is not simply an ordinary romance. It is connected to the lives of the two elderly people sitting together in the present. The narrative then takes us back to the 1940s, where we meet Noah Calhoun, a young man from a modest background who lives in the small southern town of Seabrook and works hard while dreaming of building a meaningful future. Noah is energetic, passionate, stubborn, romantic, and emotionally direct, and these qualities make him very different from the wealthy and controlled world surrounding Allie Hamilton. Allie is a young woman from a wealthy family who is spending the summer in Seabrook with her parents, and although she has been raised in a comfortable environment, she is curious, adventurous, intelligent, and eager to experience life beyond the expectations of her family. When Noah first sees Allie, he becomes immediately interested in her, but their first interactions are not presented as a perfect romantic meeting. Noah's persistence is sometimes playful and sometimes irritating to Allie, and she initially resists him, but the tension between them gradually turns into attraction. Their relationship develops during a summer that becomes incredibly important to both of them because they experience a sense of freedom that neither had known before. Noah introduces Allie to a world that is less concerned with wealth, social status, and family expectations, while Allie brings excitement, confidence, and emotional intensity into Noah's life. Their romance is passionate because they challenge each other rather than simply agreeing with each other. They argue, tease one another, laugh together, explore the town, and slowly discover that their connection is stronger than either expected. One of the most important themes introduced in this early part of the movie is the conflict between love and social class. Noah does not have the wealth or family connections that Allie's parents consider appropriate for their daughter. From their perspective, Allie has a future that should involve education, security, and a suitable husband from a respectable family. Noah represents uncertainty and financial insecurity, even though he genuinely loves her. Allie's mother in particular recognizes the social difference between them and worries that her daughter is making an emotional decision that could affect her entire future. The film does not portray this conflict as a simple battle between good and evil. Instead, it shows how social expectations can influence people's choices even when genuine love exists. Allie is caught between what she wants and what her family believes is best for her. Noah, meanwhile, believes that love should be strong enough to overcome those barriers, but he is still young and does not fully understand how difficult life can become when love has to compete with family expectations, economic circumstances, and time. The chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams is one of the major reasons the romance feels so memorable. Their performances make Noah and Allie feel like two young people discovering love rather than simply characters following a romantic script. Ryan Gosling portrays Noah as passionate and emotionally vulnerable beneath his confident exterior. He is willing to fight for Allie, but his determination also contains insecurity because he knows that he does not belong to her family's world. Rachel McAdams portrays Allie as energetic, emotional, independent, and sometimes conflicted. She is attracted to Noah because he allows her to experience a side of herself that her controlled upbringing has limited. Their relationship therefore becomes more than a love story, it becomes a story about discovering identity. Allie begins to understand what she wants from life, while Noah begins to understand how deeply another person can matter to him. The summer romance is filled with moments that establish their emotional connection. They spend time together, explore abandoned places, talk about their dreams, and imagine a future without fully understanding how complicated that future will become. One of the film's strongest qualities is the way it allows ordinary moments to become emotionally important. The relationship is not built only through dramatic declarations. It develops through conversations, disagreements, laughter, physical closeness, and the simple experience of spending time together. This makes the romance believable because love is shown as something that grows through shared experiences. However, the happiness of the summer is temporary. Allie's parents eventually make it clear that they do not approve of Noah and believe that the relationship must end. Allie is forced to leave Seabrook, and Noah is left devastated. The separation becomes the first major emotional turning point of the story. Noah believes that Allie will remain connected to him, but circumstances make communication difficult, and the emotional distance between them grows. This section of the movie is important because it establishes one of its central ideas. Love can be real and powerful while still being vulnerable to circumstances. Noah does not stop loving Allie simply because she leaves, but he also cannot control what happens afterward. He writes letters to her because he wants her to know that he has not forgotten their relationship. The letters become a symbol of his continued emotional connection. But when those letters do not reach Allie in the way he hopes, Noah begins to believe that she has moved on. Allie, meanwhile, also suffers from the separation, but her circumstances are different. Her family has taken her away from the relationship, and she eventually has to make decisions about her future. The film uses this separation to show that love is not always destroyed by distance. Sometimes distance simply hides it beneath years of change. Noah's emotional response to losing Allie is especially significant because he does not immediately transform into a perfect romantic hero. He experiences sadness, anger, disappointment, and loneliness. Yet instead of allowing those emotions to completely destroy him, he begins rebuilding his life. He works hard and eventually purchases an old abandoned house that he dreams of restoring. The house becomes a major symbol in the film. Noah's determination to rebuild it reflects his desire to create something permanent out of a life that has been marked by uncertainty. He remembers the dreams he and Allie once discussed, and the restoration of the house becomes connected to the future he once imagined with her. The house is therefore more than a building. It represents memory, hope, lost love, and the possibility of beginning again. The film then moves forward in time, showing that years have passed. Allie has become engaged to Lon Hammond, a wealthy and respectable young man who appears to provide everything her family would want for her. Lon is educated, successful, kind, and capable of offering Allie a stable future. This makes the romantic conflict more complicated because Lon is not portrayed as a simple villain. He genuinely cares about Allie, and their relationship has real affection. Allie is not trapped with a terrible person. She is faced with a difficult choice between a safe and socially approved future and the passionate love she once experienced with Noah. This is one of the movie's strongest dramatic ideas because it avoids making the decision completely obvious. Noah represents emotional intensity, freedom, and a connection to Allie's younger self, while Lon represents stability, security, maturity, and the life her family has always imagined for her. Allie must eventually decide which version of herself she wants to live as. Noah, meanwhile, has never completely forgotten her. Even though years have passed, he has continued restoring the house and carrying the memory of their relationship. His life appears quiet from the outside, but emotionally he remains connected to the past. This is where the movie begins exploring the difference between moving on and forgetting. Noah has moved forward with his life, but he has not erased Allie. The audience begins to understand that his love for her has become part of his identity. When Allie eventually sees Noah again, the emotional tension is immediate. Their reunion is not simple because they are no longer the same young people who fell in love during that summer. They have experienced years apart, and both have developed different lives. Yet the emotional connection between them returns with surprising strength. The film suggests that some relationships leave such a deep impression that time cannot completely erase them. Allie is now engaged to another man, which makes her attraction to Noah emotionally complicated and morally difficult. She knows that returning to Noah could hurt Lon, disappoint her family, and destroy the future she has carefully built. Noah also understands that Allie has another life, but he cannot pretend that his feelings have disappeared. Their reunion therefore creates a conflict between desire and responsibility. This is where The Notebook becomes more than a simple romantic fantasy. It asks difficult questions about whether people should follow their strongest feelings, whether past love should be allowed to influence present commitments, and whether happiness can be separated from sacrifice. Allie is forced to confront the fact that the life she has chosen may not be the life she truly wants. Noah, on the other hand, must decide whether loving someone means fighting for them or respecting the choices they have made. The emotional power of the story comes from this uncertainty. The audience is encouraged to understand both characters rather than simply judge them. Another major strength of the film is its use of memory and storytelling. The elderly man reading the notebook creates a narrative within the narrative, and the audience gradually begins to understand that the story being read has a deeply personal meaning. The elderly woman listens even though her memory has been damaged by illness. At times she seems emotionally moved by the story without being able to fully understand why. This structure transforms the romance into a meditation on memory itself. What happens when the mind forgets the people and experiences that once defined a person's life? Can emotional connection survive when conscious memory disappears? The film suggests that love can exist in ways that are deeper than ordinary recollection. The notebook becomes a symbol of memory preserved outside the mind. Written words hold the story when the woman cannot hold it herself. This makes the title The Notebook especially meaningful. It is not merely a collection of memories, it becomes a bridge between past and present. The elderly man's patience is also one of the most touching aspects of the story. He continues reading to the woman even when she does not recognize him. He does not become angry or give up. Instead, he accepts that loving someone with memory loss requires extraordinary patience and emotional strength. His devotion shows that love in the film is not limited to youthful passion. The movie begins with young love, but its deeper message is about enduring love. The young Noah and Allie experience romance as excitement, attraction, and emotional discovery, while the older couple represents love as commitment, patience, sacrifice, and care. The two timelines therefore complement each other. One shows how love begins, while the other shows what love can become after decades of life. This structure is one of the main reasons the film has such a strong emotional impact. The story constantly moves between youthful romance and old age, reminding the audience that time changes the body but does not necessarily erase emotional bonds. The cinematography also contributes strongly to the romantic atmosphere. The southern setting, natural landscapes, water, old houses, warm light, and quiet surroundings create a visual world that feels nostalgic and intimate. The environment is not merely a background, it becomes part of the emotional identity of the story. The old house especially represents Noah's dedication. When he works on restoring it, he is not simply repairing walls and windows. He is rebuilding a dream that began during his relationship with Allie. Every improvement becomes an expression of hope. The house also represents the possibility of creating something permanent from a relationship that was interrupted by circumstances. The movie's music further strengthens the emotional atmosphere by supporting moments of tenderness, sadness, uncertainty, and reunion without overwhelming the performances. The overall tone is romantic but also melancholic because the audience knows from the beginning that the story is connected to an elderly couple facing the consequences of time and memory. This creates a sense of emotional inevitability. Even during the happiest moments of Noah and Allie's youth, the opening scenes remind us that their story will eventually reach old age. This gives the romance a bittersweet quality. The film does not simply ask whether Noah and Allie will end up together. It asks what it means to remain connected to someone across an entire lifetime. The social class conflict also continues to influence Allie's choices. Her mother believes that Noah cannot provide the kind of life Allie deserves, but the movie challenges the assumption that financial security automatically creates happiness. Lon can offer Allie stability, while Noah offers emotional authenticity. Yet the film does not completely reject the value of stability. Lon is caring and sincere, and Allie's relationship with him has genuine value. This makes Allie's eventual decision difficult because she is not choosing between love and cruelty. She is choosing between two different versions of a future. The conflict is therefore internal rather than simply external. Allie must decide what she values most and whether she is willing to accept the consequences of that decision. Noah also has to confront his own expectations. He wants Allie to choose him, but he cannot force her. His love is passionate, but the story repeatedly tests whether passion can coexist with respect. This emotional complexity makes the characters more believable. The movie also explores the idea of unfinished relationships. Noah and Allie never receive a clean ending after their summer together. They are separated without fully resolving what happened, and years later they discover that their feelings have survived. This suggests that unresolved love can remain powerful because people continue imagining what might have happened. The restored house is partly the physical form of that imagination. Noah builds a future around a memory, and when Allie returns, the dream suddenly becomes possible again. Their reunion is therefore both exciting and painful because it forces them to confront the years they lost. The audience feels the weight of those missing years. Every conversation between them carries the knowledge that they could have spent those years together. This makes their romance emotionally powerful but also tragic. The film's portrayal of young love is passionate, sometimes impulsive, and occasionally messy. Noah and Allie are not perfect. They argue intensely, misunderstand each other, and make decisions that hurt one another. But these imperfections make the relationship feel alive. Their chemistry is based not only on attraction but also on emotional honesty. They challenge each other's assumptions and force one another to reveal feelings that would otherwise remain hidden. Noah encourages Allie to step outside the controlled world created by her family, while Allie encourages Noah to imagine a future larger than his circumstances. They influence each other in ways that continue long after the summer ends. This is why their separation feels so painful. They have not simply lost a romantic partner, they have lost a version of themselves that existed only when they were together. The older storyline deepens this idea even further. The elderly man continues reading because he believes that the story can reach the woman emotionally even when her conscious memory cannot hold it. At certain moments, her reactions suggest that something inside her recognizes the emotional truth of the story. This creates one of the film's most powerful ideas. Memory may disappear, but emotional familiarity can remain. The relationship between the elderly couple is therefore a continuation of the youthful romance rather than a separate story. The audience begins to understand that the love they saw decades earlier has survived in a different form. It has become patience, care, loyalty, and the willingness to remain present even when recognition is no longer guaranteed. This is perhaps the deepest message of The Notebook. Love is not only about the moment when two people fall in love. It is also about what they do after the excitement fades, after life becomes difficult, after bodies age, and after circumstances take away things they once considered permanent. The film presents love as an active choice that must be made repeatedly. The young Noah chooses Allie despite social barriers. Allie struggles to choose between her expected future and her true feelings. The older Noah chooses to remain beside Allie despite her memory loss. Each stage of the story presents love as a decision rather than simply an emotion. This makes the movie especially effective as a long-form romantic drama. It begins with attraction, develops through separation, returns through reunion, and ultimately becomes a story about devotion. The title itself becomes more meaningful as the story progresses because The Notebook represents the preservation of a relationship when ordinary memory fails. It contains words that can bring the past back into the present, even if only for a brief moment. The story therefore becomes a form of emotional medicine within the world of the film, not because it cures illness, but because it reconnects two people with the love that defined their lives. The performances in the elderly storyline are particularly important because the emotional tone changes from youthful passion to quiet tenderness. The older characters do not need dramatic romantic gestures to communicate their connection. A look, a touch, a conversation, or simply the decision to remain together can carry enormous emotional weight. This contrast makes the film's structure effective. Young Noah and Allie express love through energy and passion, while older Noah and Allie express it through endurance and patience. Together, these two versions of love create a complete picture of a relationship across time. The movie also reminds viewers that every great love story contains uncertainty. There are no guarantees that people will stay together, that circumstances will remain favorable, or that memory will preserve everything. What matters is how people respond to those uncertainties. Noah chooses persistence. Allie chooses honesty with herself. Their relationship survives because both eventually recognize that their emotional connection matters more to them than the expectations placed around them. However, the film does not suggest that following love is always easy or consequence-free. Their choices affect other people, especially Lon, and this adds moral complexity to the story. Allie's decision is not simply about what she wants. It also affects someone who genuinely loves her. The film therefore creates emotional conflict without turning every character into a villain. This makes the romance more mature than a simple love triangle. By the end of this first major stage of the story, The Notebook has established its central themes clearly. Love versus social expectations, memory versus time, passion versus stability, and personal choice versus family pressure. Noah and Allie's summer romance has become the foundation for a lifetime of emotional consequences. Their separation demonstrates how fragile love can appear when circumstances intervene, while their reunion suggests that some emotional connections survive despite years of distance. The elderly storyline then transforms the romance into something even deeper, showing that the true test of love is not how intensely two people feel when they are young, but whether they remain committed when life becomes difficult. The film's emotional power comes from its willingness to connect youthful dreams with the realities of aging. Noah and Allie's love is beautiful because it begins with excitement, but it becomes meaningful because it survives change. The Notebook ultimately presents romance as a journey rather than a single perfect moment. It is about meeting someone who changes your understanding of yourself, losing that person, finding them again, and discovering that the connection has survived the passage of time. Noah and Allie are separated by social class, family expectations, geography, war, and years, yet their relationship continues to shape their lives. The Notebook becomes the physical representation of everything they refuse to forget. As the story moves forward, the audience understands that the real question is not simply whether Noah and Allie will be together, but whether their love can survive every stage of life. The answer is developed slowly through the film's parallel timelines, emotional performances, nostalgic setting, and emphasis on memory. The result is a romantic drama that combines youthful passion with the quiet sadness of aging and the extraordinary idea that love can remain meaningful even when the mind begins to forget the very memories that created it. Part 1 therefore establishes The Notebook as a story not merely about two people falling in love, but about two people whose love becomes the central thread connecting their entire lives. Their journey has only begun, and the coming parts will explore their separation, reunion, difficult choices, family conflicts, emotional sacrifices, and the deeper meaning of the elderly couple's story. What begins as a summer romance will gradually become a lifetime story about commitment, memory, forgiveness, and the belief that genuine love can survive even the greatest changes that life brings. The Notebook 2004 Part 2 Long Review. After the beautiful but complicated beginning of Noah and Allie's relationship, the story moves deeper into the consequences of their separation and the choices that shape the rest of their lives. Noah and Allie may have spent only one unforgettable summer together, but that short period changes both of them permanently. Their relationship was never simply about attraction. It gave Allie a sense of freedom and gave Noah a vision of a future he had never imagined before. When circumstances force them apart, both characters are left with emotions they cannot easily explain or forget. Noah returns to his ordinary life carrying the memory of Allie, while Allie returns to her wealthy family and the world of expectations that existed before she met him. This separation is painful because neither of them is emotionally prepared for it. Noah believes their connection was strong enough to survive distance, while Allie is caught between her feelings for Noah and the expectations of her parents. The social difference between them becomes more powerful once they are no longer together because Allie's family can control where she goes, who she sees, and what kind of future they consider acceptable. Noah's life is completely different. He does not have wealth, influence, or social status, but he has a strong sense of independence and an intense determination to create something meaningful with his own hands. His decision to purchase and restore the old house becomes one of the most important symbols of his emotional journey. The house represents a dream that was connected to Allie, but it also becomes a way for Noah to take control of his own life. He does not simply sit and wait for Allie forever. He works, builds, repairs, and creates. Every wall he restores carries a memory of the future he once imagined with her. His determination gives his character emotional depth because it shows that heartbreak does not completely destroy him. Instead, it becomes part of the motivation that pushes him forward. At the same time, the movie does not pretend that Noah's life is easy after the separation. He experiences loneliness and disappointment, and there is a sense that part of him remains emotionally attached to the past. He knows that he cannot force Allie to return, but he also cannot simply erase the feelings that developed during their summer together. This is where the film begins exploring the difference between forgetting someone and moving forward. Noah can continue living, working, and building a life, but forgetting Allie would require him to erase an important part of himself. Allie faces a different struggle. Her parents want her to return to the life they believe is appropriate for her. They have always imagined her future in terms of education, marriage, social position, and financial stability. Noah does not fit that plan. To them, his lack of wealth makes him an unsuitable partner even if his feelings for Allie are sincere. The conflict is therefore not simply about whether Noah is a good person. It is about whether love can overcome a social system that values security and status. Allie is young and emotionally confused, and the pressure from her family influences her decisions. Her mother especially becomes an important figure because she understands that Allie is deeply attached to Noah, but she believes that the relationship will create difficulties for her daughter. This creates a complicated mother-daughter conflict because the mother's actions come from her own understanding of protection and responsibility. She believes she is helping Allie avoid a difficult life, while Allie eventually realizes that security without emotional fulfillment may not be enough. The movie therefore presents family pressure as something more complicated than simple cruelty. People often make decisions based on what they believe will protect someone they love, even when those decisions cause emotional pain. Noah's letters become another major symbol of their separation. He writes to Allie repeatedly because he wants to maintain the connection between them. His letters represent hope, patience, and the refusal to believe that their relationship has completely ended. Every letter carries a piece of his emotional life. The painful part is that Allie does not receive the full opportunity to respond to those feelings. The communication between them is interrupted by circumstances and family influence, creating a situation where both people are forced to make decisions without knowing the complete truth. This is one of the film's most tragic ideas. Sometimes relationships do not end because love disappears, they end because people are separated by circumstances and misunderstandings. Noah believes Allie has chosen to leave him, while Allie is left without the freedom to fully understand what Noah is trying to communicate. Years later, this unresolved emotional history becomes incredibly important. Allie eventually meets Lon Hammond, a wealthy and respectable young man who offers her a completely different kind of future. Lon is educated, successful, polite, and genuinely caring toward Allie. His character is important because he is not portrayed as an evil rival. He genuinely loves her, and his relationship with Allie has real emotional value. This makes the love triangle much more complicated. If Lon were cruel or dishonest, Allie's choice would be easy. Instead, she must choose between two people who care about her in different ways. Lon represents stability, security, social acceptance, and a predictable future. Noah represents passion, emotional freedom, uncertainty, and the memory of a love that changed her. Allie therefore faces an internal conflict rather than a simple external battle. She has to decide whether she wants the life that makes sense on paper or the life that feels emotionally authentic to her. The film's treatment of Allie's dilemma is one of its strongest qualities because it recognizes that love is not always about choosing the easiest or safest option. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one that requires a person to admit what they truly want. Noah's journey during these years is equally important because he does not simply wait for Allie to rescue him from loneliness. He builds a life for himself. The restoration of the house becomes a personal mission. He imagines how it should look, what it should feel like, and what it could represent. The house eventually becomes a physical expression of his personality: determined, hopeful, romantic, and stubborn. Noah's willingness to rebuild something abandoned also mirrors his emotional belief that relationships can be rebuilt. He sees potential where other people see something broken. This becomes especially meaningful when Allie eventually returns to his life. The restored house is proof that Noah's love was not simply a temporary emotion. It influenced his choices for years. Their eventual reunion is filled with tension because both characters are carrying the weight of the past. Allie is engaged, Noah has built a separate life, and yet the feelings between them return almost immediately. The chemistry between them makes the reunion emotionally convincing because the audience understands that they never truly resolved what happened. Their attraction is not simply nostalgia. It is connected to the fact that they still understand each other in a way that other people may not. Noah remembers the Allie who wanted to escape the expectations surrounding her, while Allie recognizes that Noah still represents the freedom she felt during that summer. Their reunion therefore forces both characters to confront the versions of themselves they had tried to leave behind. One of the most powerful aspects of this part of the film is the way it shows that people can build completely different lives while still carrying an emotional connection to someone from the past. Allie has become engaged to Lon and appears to have a stable future, but meeting Noah makes her question whether that future truly belongs to her. Noah has built his house and continued living, but seeing Allie again reveals that his feelings were never fully gone. Their reunion creates an emotional storm because neither of them can pretend that the past has no meaning. They must decide whether to accept the lives they have built or risk everything to pursue the relationship they once lost. The film does not make this decision easy. Allie knows that choosing Noah could hurt Lon and disappoint her family. Noah knows that asking Allie to return to him means asking her to abandon a life that has taken years to create. Their love therefore comes with consequences. The movie asks an important question. If two people still love each other after years apart, does that automatically mean they should be together? The answer is not simple. Love can be powerful, but people also have responsibilities to others. Allie's struggle is especially emotional because she does not want to hurt Lon, yet she also cannot deny what she feels for Noah. Her conflict shows that sometimes honesty is painful but necessary. Lon deserves to know the truth, and Allie must eventually decide whether she is willing to live according to her own feelings rather than the expectations of everyone around her. Noah's personality also becomes more mature during this period. The younger Noah was impulsive and sometimes reckless, but the older Noah has learned patience. He does not need to prove himself through constant dramatic actions. His restored house and quiet life show that he has learned to live independently. Yet beneath that calm exterior is the same emotional intensity that existed during his youth. When Allie returns, that old passion becomes visible again. The contrast between young and older Noah demonstrates how people can change without completely losing their essential personality. The same is true for Allie. She is no longer the carefree young woman from Seabrook, but the adventurous and emotional side of her personality remains. Her relationship with Noah brings that side back to the surface. The film's use of the elderly storyline also gives this reunion an additional layer of meaning. The audience knows that the romantic story being told has a connection to the elderly couple, but the exact nature of that connection creates suspense. Every moment between young Noah and Allie carries the knowledge that the story eventually reaches old age. This makes the romance feel both beautiful and fragile. The audience is not simply watching two young people fall in love. They are watching the beginning of a relationship that will eventually be tested by time, illness, and memory. This structure transforms even ordinary romantic scenes into moments of larger significance. The notebook itself becomes more important as the story progresses because it represents the preservation of memories. The elderly man reads from it because he wants the woman to reconnect with a story that once belonged to both of them. Even when she cannot remember, the emotional reaction to the story suggests that something deeper may remain. This is one of the film's most moving ideas. The human mind may lose details, names, and events, but emotional bonds can sometimes remain in ways that are difficult to explain. The elderly man's persistence demonstrates a form of love that is very different from the passionate romance of youth. He does not expect excitement or recognition. He simply wants to be beside the woman he loves. That devotion gives the youthful story greater meaning because it shows what their relationship can become after decades. The southern setting also continues to strengthen the nostalgic atmosphere. The old houses, quiet roads, waterways, trees, and warm natural scenery create a romantic environment that feels separated from the modern world. The setting allows Noah and Allie's relationship to develop away from the pressures of everyday life. Their summer feels almost like a private world where they can discover themselves. But once that summer ends, the larger world returns. Family expectations, money, marriage, career, and social status begin controlling their choices again. This contrast between freedom and responsibility is central to the film. Seabrook represents emotional freedom, while the world surrounding Allie represents social expectations. Noah's restored house eventually becomes a place where those two worlds meet. When Allie returns, she sees the physical result of Noah's dream and realizes that he did not simply remember her. He built something connected to the life they once imagined. This creates one of the film's most emotionally significant moments because the house becomes proof of continuity. Noah's life changed, but his deepest dream remained connected to Allie. The relationship between Noah and Allie also demonstrates how love can challenge people's understanding of themselves. Allie has been taught what a respectable future should look like, but Noah makes her question whether respectability is the same as happiness. Noah, meanwhile, learns that loving someone from a different social world requires more than passion. He must accept uncertainty and the possibility that love may not be enough to control the outcome. Both characters grow through their relationship. This is why their romance feels important beyond simple attraction. They force each other to confront uncomfortable truths. Allie must ask what she truly wants, while Noah must accept that he cannot control her decision. The film's emotional intensity comes from the fact that both characters are vulnerable. Neither can guarantee the outcome. Their reunion could become a new beginning or another painful separation. As the story develops, the audience is encouraged to think about the meaning of choices made in youth. People often make decisions when they are young without knowing how those decisions will affect their future. Allie chose to follow her family for a time, Noah chose to continue building his life, and Lon chose to build a future with Allie. Years later, all three are forced to confront the consequences of those choices. The movie suggests that time does not erase decisions, it reveals their consequences. This is especially important in the context of the older couple. Their present situation shows the final stage of choices made decades earlier. The elderly man's dedication demonstrates that the emotional decisions made when they were young continued shaping their entire lives. The film also explores forgiveness. When Noah and Allie meet again, they cannot simply ignore the pain of their separation. There are questions about why they lost contact, why they moved on, and whether they should have fought harder. Forgiveness becomes necessary if they want to rebuild their connection. Yet forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened. It means accepting that both were influenced by circumstances beyond their control. This is another reason the romance feels emotionally mature. The story recognizes that love can survive mistakes, but survival requires honesty. The performances remain central throughout this part. Ryan Gosling's portrayal of Noah combines toughness with vulnerability. He rarely needs exaggerated dialogue to show his feelings because his expressions and body language communicate his emotional state. Rachel McAdams brings energy and uncertainty to Allie, showing a woman who is torn between the expectations of her family and the person she wants to become. Their chemistry gives the film its emotional engine. The supporting performances also help create the larger world around them, especially the family pressures and the emotional reality of the older couple. The movie's romantic atmosphere is also strengthened by its pacing. Rather than rushing immediately from one dramatic event to another, it allows moments of silence, conversation, and reflection. This gives the audience time to understand why Noah and Allie matter to each other. Their relationship feels like something that grew naturally rather than something created only to produce dramatic scenes. The film also understands that romantic love is strongest when characters have a sense of individuality. Noah is not simply Allie's love interest, and Allie is not simply Noah's dream woman. They are both people with conflicting desires and personal histories. Their eventual decisions therefore matter because they are choices made by individuals rather than by a predetermined romantic formula. The notebook itself remains an emotional anchor throughout the story. It contains the words that connect the elderly couple to their past, and its existence suggests that stories can preserve experiences when memory becomes unreliable. In a broader sense, the notebook represents the human desire to leave evidence that love existed. Photographs, letters, houses, and stories all preserve pieces of a life. Noah's restored house and the notebook serve similar purposes. The house preserves a physical dream, while the notebook preserves an emotional story. Together they show how people try to protect important memories against the passage of time. By the end of Part 2, the notebook has developed from a summer romance into a much larger story about the choices people make and the lives those choices create. Noah and Allie have been separated by family pressure and circumstance, but their emotional connection has survived. Allie now has a relationship with Lon that represents security and social acceptance, while Noah has built a life around the memory of the love they once shared. Their reunion forces both of them to confront the truth that the past still matters. The story is no longer asking whether they loved each other, that question has already been answered. The real question is whether they are willing to face the consequences of choosing that love again. At the same time, the elderly storyline reminds the audience that the significance of their relationship extends far beyond youth. The love that begins with passionate arguments and romantic adventures may eventually become something quieter and more profound. Patience, care, loyalty, and the willingness to remain with someone even when memory itself begins to disappear. The Notebook therefore continues building toward an emotional conclusion that is not simply about romance, but about what it means to dedicate an entire lifetime to another person. Noah and Allie's story demonstrates that some choices cannot be undone, some years cannot be recovered, and some memories cannot last forever, yet the emotional meaning of love can remain powerful long after the original moment has passed. The Notebook, 2004, Part 3 Long Review. Noah and Allie's reunion becomes the emotional center of the story as the years of separation between them suddenly feel less important than the feelings that return the moment they are together again. Noah has spent years rebuilding his life and restoring the old house that once represented a dream shared with Allie, while Allie has built a completely different future with Lon. On the surface, both seem to have moved forward, but their reunion reveals that moving forward is not always the same as forgetting. The moment Allie sees Noah again, the past returns with extraordinary force. Memories of their summer together come rushing back, along with the emotions, arguments, dreams, and promises that once made their relationship feel like the center of the world. Noah is no longer the carefree young man Allie remembers, but his personality still carries the same determination and passion. Allie has also changed, becoming more mature and responsible, yet the adventurous and emotional woman Noah once knew is still inside her. Their reunion is therefore not simply two old lovers meeting again. It is two people discovering that a part of themselves has remained connected across many years. Noah's restored house becomes especially important during this stage because it represents both his independence and his continuing connection to Allie. He has transformed an abandoned building into a beautiful home through years of hard work, and the house reflects the dreams he once shared with her. When Allie sees what Noah has created, she is forced to confront the fact that the man she once loved did not disappear. He built a life, but he never completely abandoned the emotional world they had created together. The house becomes a physical reminder of what their future might have looked like if they had never been separated. For Allie, this realization is both beautiful and painful because she is now engaged to another man. Lon Hammond represents stability, respectability, and the future her family approves of. He is not cruel, selfish, or dishonest, which makes Allie's situation much harder. If Lon were a bad person, leaving him would be easy to justify, but he genuinely cares about her and believes they are building a life together. This forces Allie to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the right emotional decision can still hurt an innocent person. The film does not pretend that love eliminates responsibility. Instead, it shows that difficult choices often involve pain for everyone involved. Noah also understands that he cannot simply demand that Allie choose him. He wants her deeply, but he knows she has another life. His patience becomes important because he must allow her to make her own decision. This is a significant difference between the young Noah and the older Noah. The younger version of him was impulsive and sometimes reckless, while the older version has learned that love cannot be forced. He can tell Allie how he feels, but ultimately she must decide what kind of life she wants. Their conversations become increasingly emotional because both know that their reunion may be temporary. Every moment together feels valuable because they understand that a decision is approaching. Allie is caught between the person she once was and the person she has become. With Noah, she feels emotionally free and connected to a part of herself that she thought she had left behind. With Lon, she has security and a future that makes sense according to the expectations of her family and society. The conflict is therefore not simply Noah versus Lon. It is Allie versus the different versions of her own future. She must decide whether she wants to live according to other people's expectations or accept the uncertainty of following her own heart. This is one of the most important themes in the film because Allie's struggle represents a universal question. Should a person choose the life that looks perfect from the outside or the life that feels meaningful from within? The movie does not suggest that stability has no value. Lon's relationship with Allie is genuine, and his desire to make her happy is sincere. But emotional compatibility cannot always be measured by security or social approval. Noah and Allie share a connection based on their ability to challenge each other, understand each other, and make each other feel fully alive. Their relationship is not perfect. They argue intensely, misunderstand one another, and sometimes hurt each other, but they also share an emotional honesty that Allie finds difficult to ignore. Noah's love is not presented as effortless. He has suffered because of it, waited because of it, and built his life around memories connected to it. Allie realizes that her own feelings have also survived the years, even though she tried to build a different life. The emotional intensity of their reunion is strengthened by the knowledge that time cannot be recovered. They lost years that could have been spent together. They cannot return to the summer when everything was simple. If they choose each other now, they must accept that their relationship will begin again under completely different circumstances. This makes their romance more mature. They are no longer teenagers discovering first love. They are adults who understand that choices have consequences. The movie's parallel storytelling makes this even more powerful because the elderly couple's storyline continues in the background. The audience knows that the youthful romance is eventually connected to the older couple, which creates an emotional sense of destiny. The elderly man reads the notebook with patience, telling the story to a woman who struggles to remember it. His actions reveal a love that has moved beyond passion into devotion. He does not read the story because he expects a reward. He reads because he wants to bring a piece of their shared past back to her, even if she can only remember it for a short time. This creates a beautiful contrast with the young Noah and Allie. The young couple is fighting to decide whether they should be together, while the older couple demonstrates what happens when love survives an entire lifetime. The notebook becomes a bridge between these two stages. The story written inside it preserves the memories that the elderly woman can no longer reliably access. The notebook is therefore a symbol of the human desire to protect love from time. People take photographs, write letters, restore houses, and tell stories because they know memories can disappear. Noah's house and the notebook serve similar purposes. Both are attempts to preserve something meaningful. One preserves a physical dream, while the other preserves an emotional history. The older Noah's dedication is particularly moving because he understands that his wife may not always know who he is, yet he continues choosing her. This idea gives the entire movie a deeper meaning. Young love is often described through excitement, attraction, and intense emotion, but the notebook asks what happens when all of those things are tested by aging. The answer is that love can become an act of patience. It can mean sitting beside someone who does not remember your name. It can mean repeating a story again and again. It can mean accepting that the person you love may change in ways you cannot control. This is why the elderly storyline is so important to the overall review of the film. It changes the meaning of the youthful romance. Noah and Allie's summer is not simply a beautiful memory, it is the foundation of a lifetime of commitment. The movie's southern setting continues contributing to this emotional atmosphere. Water, trees, old buildings, quiet roads, and warm natural landscapes create a nostalgic world where memories seem to remain visible in the environment. The places Noah and Allie once visited are connected to their relationship, and the house he restores becomes a physical container for those memories. The setting makes the audience feel that the past is always close, even when years have passed. This is especially effective because the movie constantly moves between past and present. The past is colorful, energetic, and full of possibility, while the present is quieter and more fragile. Yet the emotional connection between the two periods remains strong. Noah's personality is also shaped by his belief in persistence. When he wants something, he does not easily give up. This quality helps him restore the house and continue living after heartbreak, but it can also become a weakness when he refuses to accept circumstances. His relationship with Allie teaches him that persistence must be balanced with respect. He can express his feelings, but he cannot make the decision for her. This is where his character becomes more mature. He learns that true love is not ownership. Loving someone means wanting them to be happy even when their happiness may not involve you. At the same time, Noah's willingness to remain emotionally open shows how deeply Allie affected him. He does not replace the relationship with another romance simply to avoid loneliness. Instead, he allows himself to feel the loss and continues building his own life. This makes his eventual reunion with Allie more meaningful because he is not simply waiting helplessly for her. He has become a complete person on his own. Allie's character develops in a different direction. She has spent years trying to become the woman her family expects her to be, and her engagement to Lon appears to represent that success. Yet seeing Noah again makes her question whether she has sacrificed too much of her authentic self for stability. She realizes that the girl who fell in love with Noah was not simply rebellious or immature. That girl was also discovering what made her happy. This realization forces Allie to look honestly at her life. She cannot continue pretending that the past means nothing. Her feelings for Noah are real, and ignoring them would require denying a part of herself. However, acknowledging those feelings does not make her decision easy. She must consider Lon, her family, and the future she has planned. The emotional tension becomes stronger because Allie knows that whichever choice she makes, someone will be hurt. This is where the film's romantic drama becomes genuinely difficult. It is not simply about getting the couple together. It is about the emotional cost of choosing one life over another. Lon's position deserves attention because his character demonstrates that love can take different forms. He loves Allie sincerely and believes in the future they are building. He is not trying to control her happiness, he genuinely wants to be her husband. His pain therefore becomes part of the story's moral complexity. Allie's decision is not only a personal choice but also a decision that changes another person's life. The film invites the audience to feel sympathy for everyone involved rather than treating the love triangle as a simple competition. Noah and Allie's relationship also raises the question of whether first love has a special power. Sometimes the first person who truly understands us leaves an emotional imprint that later relationships cannot completely replace. This does not mean every first love should be pursued forever, but in Noah and Allie's case, the connection is unusually strong. Their relationship changed how they understood themselves. Noah gave Allie freedom, while Allie gave Noah a sense of possibility. Their emotional bond therefore survives because it is connected to personal growth, not merely romantic attraction. The film's dialogue and performances work together to communicate this. Noah is direct about his feelings, while Allie often struggles to express the conflict inside her. Her hesitation is important because it shows that she is not simply following emotion blindly. She understands the consequences. She knows that choosing Noah means accepting uncertainty, and that choosing Lon means potentially losing the person she still loves. Her internal struggle is what makes her eventual decision meaningful. The movie also explores the idea of unfinished business. Noah and Allie never received a proper ending to their first relationship. Their separation was influenced by circumstances and family pressure, leaving both with unanswered questions. When they meet again, those questions return. Their reunion becomes an opportunity to discover what might have happened if they had been given a real choice. This makes the romance feel almost like a second chance, but it is not an easy second chance. They must decide whether the people they have become can still build something together. The answer depends on whether they can forgive the past and accept the present. The notebook itself continues serving as a symbol of this process. A written story can preserve the emotional truth of a relationship even when individual memories become unreliable. The elderly man understands that the story matters because it gives his wife a path back to the person she once was. Even if the memory lasts only briefly, those moments are valuable. This reflects a broader idea about relationships. Sometimes people cannot control how long memories last, but they can choose to preserve them and continue caring for each other. The older Noah's devotion therefore becomes the ultimate expression of the love introduced in the youthful storyline. He has moved from wanting Allie passionately to caring for her patiently. The nature of love has changed, but its core remains. This is why the film has such a strong emotional reputation. It does not stop at the moment when two people fall in love. It asks what happens after that. It shows separation, reunion, uncertainty, aging, illness, and memory loss. In doing so, it presents romance as a lifetime process rather than a single happy ending. The house Noah restores also becomes a metaphor for the relationship itself. At first it is abandoned and damaged, but Noah sees potential in it. He patiently repairs it until it becomes beautiful. In the same way, his relationship with Allie is damaged by separation but still contains the possibility of restoration. The house does not erase the past. It incorporates the past into something new. This is exactly what Noah and Allie must do with their relationship. They cannot return to their first summer, but they can create a new chapter based on everything they have learned. The emotional strength of the movie comes from this idea of rebuilding rather than simply returning. When Allie sees the house, she sees evidence of Noah's character. He is someone who can take something broken and make it meaningful again. That quality becomes symbolic of his approach to love. He refuses to believe that something valuable should be abandoned simply because it has been damaged. Yet the story also reminds us that rebuilding requires effort from both sides. Noah can restore the house alone, but he cannot restore the relationship without Allie's choice. This is why her decision matters so much. The relationship must become mutual again rather than remaining Noah's dream. The film also continues exploring memory through visual and narrative repetition. Places, conversations, and objects connect the past to the present. The audience is constantly reminded that what happened decades earlier still influences the elderly couple. This structure creates a sense that time is not a straight line in emotional life. A person can be physically old while emotionally connected to moments from youth. The elderly woman's memory may be unreliable, but the story itself preserves what happened. This makes storytelling a form of love. The older Noah tells the story because he wants to keep the connection alive. In that sense, the notebook becomes a promise. As long as the story is remembered or retold, their love has not completely disappeared. The movie's emotional message therefore extends beyond romance into the human fear of forgetting and being forgotten. Everyone wants important moments of their life to matter. Noah's decision to preserve the story suggests that love can leave a permanent mark even when individual memories fade. As Part 3 comes to an end, the emotional conflict between Noah, Allie, and Lon becomes more intense. Allie is no longer able to ignore her feelings for Noah, but she also cannot easily abandon the future she has built. Noah has opened his heart again despite the pain of the past, and he now has to wait for Allie's decision. The elderly storyline continues quietly reminding the audience that this romance is connected to something much larger than a temporary affair. The young couple's decisions will shape the rest of their lives, and the older couple's relationship shows the potential consequences of those decisions. The Notebook therefore continues developing as a story about second chances, personal freedom, sacrifice, and the endurance of love. Noah and Allie are standing at a crossroads where every direction carries a cost. Their next choices will determine whether the love they lost years ago can become the foundation of a new life, or whether it will remain only a beautiful memory preserved inside a notebook. The Notebook, 2004, Part 4 Long Review. The emotional conflict between Noah, Allie, and Lon becomes even stronger as Allie is forced to confront the truth about her feelings and decide what kind of future she genuinely wants. After years of separation, Noah and Allie have found each other again, but their reunion does not magically remove the pain and complications created by time. Allie is still engaged to Lon, a man who loves her and has built a future around their relationship, while Noah has spent years creating a life that still carries the memory of the woman he never completely forgot. Their reunion therefore becomes a battle between the past and the present, between emotional authenticity and social expectations, and between the life a person has planned and the life they unexpectedly discover they still desire. Noah's restored house stands at the center of this emotional conflict because it represents the dream he once shared with Allie. He did not restore it simply to impress her. The house became part of his own identity, a project through which he transformed heartbreak into something beautiful. When Allie sees the house, she sees more than a building. She sees the future they once imagined together and realizes that Noah carried that dream long after their separation. This realization makes it increasingly difficult for her to pretend that the past has no importance. The house also demonstrates Noah's patience. He spent years working on something that could easily have been abandoned, and this quality mirrors his approach to love. He is willing to invest time and effort into something he believes is meaningful. Yet the movie wisely shows that persistence does not give Noah ownership over Allie's decision. He can restore a house, but he cannot force another person to choose him. Allie must make that decision herself. This distinction is essential because the film's central romance only works when both characters have genuine agency. Allie is not simply returning to Noah because he waited for her. She is examining her own life and recognizing what she truly feels. Her internal conflict becomes increasingly intense because Lon is not an enemy. He is a good man who has treated her with respect and affection. He offers her a secure and socially accepted future, and Allie has already committed herself to that future. Choosing Noah therefore means accepting that her decision will hurt Lon and disappoint her family. The movie's emotional complexity comes from this reality. There is no completely painless choice. Allie cannot keep both futures. She must decide which life reflects who she really is. Her struggle also represents the broader theme of personal identity. When she was young, Allie experienced freedom with Noah and discovered a side of herself that her family environment had restricted. With Lon, she has built a respectable adult life, but she begins to wonder whether that life was chosen by her or simply accepted because it was expected. Meeting Noah forces her to ask whether she has been living according to her own desires or according to the expectations of others. This is a difficult question because social expectations can become so deeply rooted that people mistake them for personal choices. Allie's emotional journey is therefore about reclaiming her own voice. Noah's role in this process is not to tell her what to do but to remind her of what she once felt. He gives her space to decide, even though the waiting is painful for him. This makes his character more mature than the younger Noah we saw at the beginning. The young Noah was passionate and impatient, but the older Noah has learned that love requires patience. He understands that Allie has to make the choice freely. His willingness to wait without controlling her is one of the strongest signs of his emotional growth. At the same time, Noah remains vulnerable. He has spent years imagining what it would be like to see Allie again, and now that she is standing in front of him, he knows he could lose her for a second time. This fear makes his behavior more emotional and sometimes defensive. He wants to believe that their connection is enough, but he also knows that reality can destroy even the strongest feelings. The audience can feel the tension because both characters understand that their reunion may not last. The film uses this uncertainty effectively by allowing moments of happiness to exist alongside sadness. When Noah and Allie are together, there is laughter and passion, but there is always the knowledge that Allie has another life waiting for her. This gives their romantic scenes a bittersweet quality. They are enjoying the present while knowing that a decision is approaching. The emotional intensity is strengthened by the chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. Their performances make the relationship feel spontaneous and imperfect. They do not behave like idealized romantic characters who always know what to say. They interrupt each other, argue, become frustrated, laugh, and reveal vulnerabilities. Their disagreements are especially important because they show that their relationship is not based only on attraction. Noah and Allie have strong personalities, and they challenge each other. Allie does not simply accept everything Noah says, while Noah refuses to hide his feelings. This creates emotional friction, but that friction also makes their connection feel authentic. One of the most interesting aspects of their relationship is that they represent freedom for each other. Noah sees Allie as someone who brings energy and possibility into his life, while Allie sees Noah as someone who allows her to escape the controlled identity created by her family. Their love is therefore connected to personal transformation. Being together does not simply make them happy, it makes them more aware of who they are. This is why losing each other was so painful. They were not only losing a partner, they were losing a version of themselves. The movie also continues to use the elderly storyline as an emotional frame around the younger romance. The elderly man patiently reads the story from the notebook to the woman beside him. The audience gradually understands that the story has a personal connection to them, and this knowledge changes how every scene of the young romance feels. The elderly woman's memory problems create a heartbreaking contrast with the notebook's detailed account of their past. The words remember what the mind can no longer reliably hold. The elderly man therefore becomes a guardian of their shared history. He knows that the story is not just entertainment. It is part of who they are. His decision to keep reading demonstrates extraordinary devotion. He does not demand that she remember him. He simply continues offering the story, hoping that somewhere beneath the confusion, the emotional connection remains. This aspect of the film gives the youthful romance a deeper purpose. The story is not simply about finding love, it is about preserving love across time. The notebook becomes a physical representation of memory, while the elderly man's actions become a representation of commitment. The young Noah wants Allie to choose him, but the older Noah simply wants to remain beside her. This evolution is one of the film's most powerful ideas. Love changes as people age. The passion of youth can eventually become patience, care, and sacrifice. The film suggests that the deepest form of love may be the willingness to stay even when there is no guarantee of recognition or reward. The story also explores the painful idea that time cannot be controlled. Noah and Allie lost years that they can never recover. No matter what decision Allie makes, those years are gone. This gives their second chance a sense of urgency. They are not trying to recreate their first summer exactly. They are trying to decide what to do with the time they have left. This makes the romance more mature because it recognizes that life does not provide unlimited opportunities. Sometimes a second chance appears only after years of regret. When it arrives, a person must decide whether to take the risk. Allie's dilemma is therefore not simply about choosing between two men. It is about choosing between certainty and possibility. Lon offers a life that is already planned, while Noah represents a future that is uncertain but emotionally powerful. Allie must determine which risk she is willing to accept. The movie does not suggest that choosing uncertainty is automatically better. Instead, it argues that a life should be evaluated according to what makes a person genuinely fulfilled, not only according to what appears successful from the outside. This theme remains relevant because people often make life decisions based on social expectations, family pressure, financial security, or fear of disappointing others. Allie's journey asks whether those pressures should determine the most important decisions of a person's life. Her mother remains an important symbol of these expectations. She represents a generation and social environment in which marriage, class, and reputation carry enormous importance. Her opposition to Noah is not entirely based on hatred. She believes she understands what kind of future will protect Allie. However, her understanding of protection conflicts with Allie's desire for emotional freedom. This creates a generational conflict between what parents believe is best and what children eventually discover they need for themselves. The movie handles this conflict emotionally rather than turning it into a simple argument. Allie's mother is also shaped by her own past and experiences, and this becomes important because it suggests that adults sometimes make decisions for their children based on lessons from their own lives. Noah's modest background therefore becomes a threat to the future Allie's family has imagined, even though Noah himself is not a threat. He simply represents a different way of living. The restored house is another visual representation of this difference. It is not a mansion designed to impress society. It is a home built through personal effort and emotional meaning. For Noah, its value comes from the work and memories connected to it, not from its financial status. Allie begins to recognize that this kind of life may be more meaningful to her than the polished world she was raised to value. Lon's world is not portrayed as empty, but Noah's world gives her a stronger sense of personal identity. This contrast allows the film to explore class without reducing the characters to stereotypes. Another important theme in this part is the power of memory. Allie remembers Noah emotionally even when years have passed. Certain places and experiences bring back feelings that she believed were buried. This suggests that memory is not only a collection of facts. It is also connected to sensory experiences, emotions, and identity. A place, a song, a house, or a conversation can suddenly bring back an entire period of life. The notebook represents this idea on a larger scale because written words can preserve experiences that the human mind may eventually lose. The elderly storyline takes this concept to its most painful point. The woman cannot consistently remember the man sitting beside her, but the story sometimes produces emotional reactions that suggest that something remains beneath the loss of conscious memory. This makes the film's message about love particularly powerful. If someone cannot remember the history of a relationship, does the relationship become less real? The movie suggests that it does not. The love existed, the life was lived, and the memories mattered even if the mind later struggles to retrieve them. The older Noah's devotion therefore becomes a statement that love is more than memory. It is also commitment and presence. He remains because their relationship has meaning even when she cannot fully recognize it. The younger Noah and Allie, meanwhile, are still learning what commitment means. Their relationship begins with emotion and attraction, but the challenges they face force them to consider responsibility. This creates a beautiful parallel between youth and old age. The young couple asks whether love is strong enough to overcome obstacles, while the older couple demonstrates that love can become a choice made repeatedly over decades. The story's emotional architecture depends on this connection. Without the elderly storyline, the youthful romance would still be moving, but with it, the romance becomes a story about an entire lifetime. The movie's visual style continues supporting this emotional structure. The warm southern landscapes create a nostalgic feeling, while the older scenes have a quieter and more intimate atmosphere. Water remains an important visual element because it represents both freedom and uncertainty. Noah and Allie share some of their happiest memories around the water, but water also symbolizes the distance that separates them. It is beautiful and dangerous at the same time, just like love in the story. The natural surroundings make their relationship feel connected to a larger world, but the film consistently returns attention to the characters themselves. Their faces, expressions, and silences often communicate more than dramatic dialogue. The performances are therefore crucial. Ryan Gosling gives Noah a mixture of confidence, vulnerability, stubbornness, and tenderness. Rachel McAdams captures Allie's emotional conflict convincingly, especially the tension between what she wants and what she believes she should want. Their chemistry is not simply physical, it comes from the feeling that they understand each other's deepest emotions. This is why their reunion feels so powerful. The audience believes that these two people are still connected because their performances communicate a history that exists beyond the scenes shown on screen. The supporting characters also strengthen the emotional world. Lon represents the life Allie has built, while her family represents the social system that influenced her choices. The older Noah represents the future possibility of enduring love. Each character therefore serves a different part of Allie's internal conflict. She must determine which relationships are based on genuine personal connection and which are based primarily on expectation. The story also explores regret. Noah regrets losing Allie and wonders what might have happened if circumstances had been different. Allie carries her own regret because she knows that part of her life was left unfinished. Regret is powerful because it makes the past feel alive. People often imagine alternative versions of their lives, wondering what would have happened if they had made a different choice. The Notebook turns that universal feeling into the central emotional conflict of its romance. Noah and Allie are given an opportunity to confront the life they might have had, but they must decide whether imagining that life is enough or whether they are willing to risk their current lives to pursue it. This is why their reunion feels like a second beginning rather than simply a continuation. They are older, more experienced, and more aware of consequences. They cannot return to innocence, but they can choose honesty. As Part 4 progresses, the story increasingly emphasizes that love requires courage. It takes courage for Noah to open himself again after years of heartbreak. It takes courage for Allie to question a secure future and admit that her feelings for Noah remain. It takes courage for the older Noah to remain beside a woman who may not remember him. Each form of courage is different, but all are connected by the willingness to accept uncertainty. The film's message is not that love makes life easy. It suggests almost the opposite. Meaningful love can make life more difficult because it forces people to make choices that challenge comfort and expectations. Yet those choices can also create the deepest sense of fulfillment. By the end of Part 4, Noah and Allie's emotional connection has become impossible for either of them to ignore. Allie is standing between two possible futures. Noah is waiting without knowing what she will choose, and Lon remains unaware of the full depth of the conflict. The audience understands that a decision is approaching, and whatever happens will have lasting consequences. The elderly storyline continues, providing a quiet reminder that the choices being made now will eventually shape an entire lifetime. The notebook remains the symbol connecting those years together, preserving the story when memory becomes fragile. The central question is no longer whether Noah and Allie still love each other. They clearly do. The question is whether they are brave enough to accept the consequences of that love and whether their relationship can survive the difficult choices that must follow. The notebook continues to show that a great romance is not simply defined by the moment two people fall in love. It is defined by what they are willing to sacrifice, what they are willing to forgive, how they respond to time, and whether they continue choosing each other when life becomes difficult. Noah and Allie's journey is moving toward a decisive moment, but the deeper story is already becoming clear. Their love has changed both of them, and no amount of time can completely erase the person who once made them feel most like themselves. The Notebook, 2004, Part 5 Long Review. In this part of the notebook, the emotional conflict between Noah and Allie becomes even more intense because Allie can no longer hide from the feelings that have returned after their reunion. For years she had built a life around the belief that the chapter with Noah was finished, but seeing him again proves that some chapters do not truly close simply because time has passed. Noah's presence brings back memories of the summer they spent together, the freedom they experienced, the dreams they discussed, and the emotional connection that had once seemed impossible to replace. Allie understands that she has changed since then, but she also realizes that the part of her that loved Noah never completely disappeared. This realization creates a powerful emotional conflict because she is engaged to Lon, and her commitment to him is not meaningless. Lon has offered her kindness, stability, respect, and a future that appears secure. He represents the life that Allie has carefully constructed, while Noah represents the life she once imagined before circumstances separated them. The difficult part is that both choices contain genuine value, and Allie cannot choose one without losing something important. Her situation demonstrates that some of the hardest decisions in life are not between good and bad options, but between two different forms of happiness. Noah's presence makes Allie question whether she has been living according to her own desires or according to the expectations of her family and society. When she was young, she was heavily influenced by her parents, especially her mother's belief that Noah was not suitable for her. Their social and financial differences were treated as evidence that the relationship could not provide the future Allie deserved. But after becoming older, Allie begins to understand that a comfortable future is not necessarily the same as a fulfilling future. Noah's life is less predictable, but it is also more authentic to the adventurous person she discovered during their summer together. This realization is painful because it means she must take responsibility for her own choices. She can no longer blame her parents, circumstances, or time for the direction her life has taken. Noah has also changed. The young man Allie knew was impulsive and intensely emotional, but the older Noah has become calmer and more patient. His years alone have taught him how to live without depending entirely on another person for happiness. The restored house is evidence of that growth. He has built something meaningful with his own hands, transforming an abandoned property into a home filled with character and beauty. The house symbolizes the possibility of rebuilding a life after loss. It also represents a dream that Noah never completely abandoned. For Allie, seeing the house is like seeing a physical version of the life they might have had together. She can imagine herself living there, and that possibility becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. Noah does not need to explain everything because the house itself tells a story. Every repaired wall and every carefully chosen detail suggests years of effort, patience, and emotional attachment. The house becomes one of the film's strongest symbols because it represents both the past and the future. It was inspired by memories of Allie, but it can also become the beginning of a new life if she chooses him. Their relationship during this reunion is filled with moments of tenderness and tension. They remember how they used to talk, argue, laugh, and challenge each other. Their chemistry remains strong because their connection is based on more than physical attraction. Noah understands the emotional side of Allie that she has hidden from the world, while Allie understands the vulnerability beneath Noah's confidence. This mutual understanding makes their relationship feel unique. At the same time, their arguments show that they are not idealized characters. They can hurt each other because they know exactly where the other person is emotionally vulnerable. Their passion is powerful partly because it is imperfect. They are two strong personalities who have spent years apart and now have to decide whether they can trust each other again. The movie's treatment of their reunion is effective because it does not pretend that the past can simply be restored. The years between them matter. Allie has lived a different life, and Noah has experienced his own struggles. They cannot erase those experiences. Instead, they must decide whether to build something new using everything they have learned. This is a deeper concept than simply returning to first love. Their relationship becomes a second chance, but a second chance requires maturity. They must communicate honestly about what happened and accept that neither of them is the same person they were during that first summer. The presence of Lon makes this decision even more difficult. Lon is waiting for Allie to return to their planned future, unaware of how deeply her feelings have changed. His character creates an important moral dimension because the audience cannot simply celebrate Noah and Allie's reunion without recognizing the pain it may cause someone else. Lon has not necessarily done anything wrong. He has loved Allie sincerely and trusted their relationship. Allie's emotional awakening therefore creates consequences beyond herself. The movie asks whether a person should remain committed to a relationship simply because another person is good and dependable, even when the emotional connection has changed. This question does not have an easy answer. Staying with Lon might protect him from heartbreak but could mean Allie spends her life suppressing her true feelings. Choosing Noah might bring Allie happiness but cause Lon tremendous pain. The story therefore presents love as a difficult moral decision rather than a simple romantic fantasy. Allie's mother also becomes increasingly important as Allie reflects on her past. Her mother's opposition to Noah was based largely on class and security, but the passage of time gives Allie a different perspective. She begins to recognize that her mother was trying to control her future because she believed she knew what was best. Yet Allie is now an adult and must decide for herself. This conflict between parental expectations and personal freedom is one of the film's most relatable themes. Many people grow up with expectations about career, marriage, money, family, and social status. Sometimes those expectations are helpful, but sometimes they prevent people from understanding what they actually want. Allie's story demonstrates the importance of eventually taking ownership of one's own life. Noah's background is also significant because his lack of wealth forces him to prove himself through determination rather than status. He cannot compete with Lon financially, so he competes through authenticity. His restored house becomes evidence that he can create something meaningful without inherited privilege. Noah's strength is not that he has become wealthy. It is that he has remained true to his values. He has learned to work hard, accept uncertainty, and create a life based on personal effort. This makes him a powerful contrast to the socially secure world Allie comes from. The movie does not say that wealth is bad or that poverty is automatically noble. Instead, it asks whether financial security should determine who someone is allowed to love. Allie's emotional connection with Noah suggests that social class cannot completely control the human heart. The elderly storyline continues adding emotional weight to these events. The older man reads from the notebook while the elderly woman struggles with memory. At times, she appears confused about who he is, but the story creates moments where emotions seem to return even when facts do not. This makes the notebook more than a simple object. It becomes a tool through which the older man tries to reconnect his wife with their shared identity. His actions show an extraordinary level of patience. He does not become frustrated because she cannot remember. Instead, he accepts that he may need to tell the same story again and again. This is a completely different kind of romance from the passionate relationship between their younger selves. The young Noah wants Allie to remember their love because he fears losing her, while the older Noah tells the story because he wants to give her even a temporary connection to the life they shared. The parallel is deeply emotional. In youth, love is often expressed through desire and excitement. In old age, it may be expressed through patience and sacrifice. The film suggests that both are valid, but the second requires a different kind of strength. Memory becomes one of the central themes of the story because human beings often define themselves through memories. If memories disappear, what remains of identity? The notebook suggests that relationships can become part of a person's identity so deeply that even when conscious memory fails, emotional familiarity may still exist. This is why the elderly woman's reactions are so meaningful. The audience does not need her to remember every detail. Her emotional responses are enough to suggest that the connection has not completely disappeared. The notebook therefore represents the idea that stories can preserve what the mind cannot. Noah's house performs a similar function. It preserves a dream in physical form. Together, these objects show how people try to protect meaningful experiences against time. The film's title becomes increasingly appropriate because the notebook is essentially a container for a lifetime of emotional history. It is a record of love, separation, choices, and devotion. The story being read is not simply a romance. It is the history of two people who spent decades shaping each other's lives. This gives every romantic scene a sense of future significance. The audience understands that what Noah and Allie are experiencing now will eventually become the story preserved in the notebook. The movie therefore creates a powerful relationship between memory and storytelling. The older Noah is both a character and a storyteller, and his storytelling becomes an act of love. He is not simply describing events. He is trying to bring his wife back to a shared emotional world. This makes the narrative structure one of the strongest features of the film. The story constantly moves between youthful passion and elderly devotion, showing two different stages of the same relationship. The young Noah and Allie are focused on finding happiness, while the older couple is focused on preserving connection. This progression makes the movie feel like a complete emotional journey rather than a typical romance that ends once the couple gets together. The film's setting also continues to support the themes of nostalgia and memory. Seabrook feels almost timeless, with its natural scenery, water, old buildings, and quiet atmosphere. The environment gives Noah and Allie's relationship a dreamlike quality, as if the summer exists outside ordinary time. But the story repeatedly reminds us that time is moving forward. The old couple at the beginning and end of the narrative represents the reality that youth eventually disappears. The beautiful summer cannot last forever. This creates a bittersweet feeling even during happy scenes. The audience is encouraged to appreciate the moments because they know time will eventually change everything. The film also emphasizes the importance of choices made during moments of uncertainty. Noah could have stopped hoping after losing Allie, but he chose to continue building his life. Allie could have ignored her feelings after meeting Noah again, but she is forced to confront them. Lon must eventually face the reality that the woman he loves may not be able to give him the future he expects. Each character is forced to make a difficult decision because life has changed. This demonstrates that relationships are not static. People grow, circumstances change, and sometimes the commitments made years earlier no longer match the person someone has become. The emotional honesty of the movie comes from acknowledging this rather than pretending that promises automatically solve everything. Allie's internal conflict becomes particularly important because she is afraid of making the wrong choice. She worries that choosing Noah may destroy the stable life she has built, while choosing Lon may leave her wondering for the rest of her life what could have happened. This fear of regret is one of the strongest forces influencing her. The movie asks whether it is better to experience the pain of a difficult choice now or the regret of avoiding that choice forever. Allie's struggle represents a universal human experience. People often fear making decisions because they cannot know the future. The safest choice can still lead to unhappiness, while the risky choice can lead to unexpected fulfillment. The Notebook suggests that there are moments when a person must trust their own feelings despite uncertainty. Noah also experiences fear, but his response is different. He has already lost Allie once, and he knows that losing her again would be devastating. Yet he is willing to risk rejection because he believes their connection is real. His willingness to be vulnerable is one of the reasons his character remains emotionally compelling. He does not hide behind pride. He allows Allie to see that he still loves her, even though she has the power to hurt him again. This emotional openness is a major part of the film's romantic appeal. The performances communicate much of this without excessive dialogue. Ryan Gosling uses expressions, pauses, and body language to show Noah's vulnerability, while Rachel McAdams portrays Allie's emotional confusion through subtle changes in expression and tone. Their chemistry creates the sense that the characters have a history beyond what is directly shown. This is important because the film relies heavily on the audience believing that their connection is powerful enough to survive years of separation. The actors make that belief possible. The supporting characters also contribute to the emotional structure. Allie's parents represent social expectations, while Lon represents stability and responsibility. The elderly woman represents memory loss and vulnerability, while the older man represents lifelong devotion. Each character contributes to a different understanding of love. The film therefore explores love from several perspectives rather than presenting only one definition. Noah and Allie's love is passionate and rebellious, Lon's love is stable and committed, and the elderly couple's love is patient and enduring. This variety makes the story more emotionally complex. The movie's central message gradually becomes clearer. Love is not defined only by how strongly people feel in a particular moment. It is defined by what they do with those feelings over time. Noah chooses to preserve the dream he shared with Allie. Allie chooses to confront the feelings she thought were gone. The older Noah chooses to continue caring for his wife despite her memory loss. Each decision demonstrates a different aspect of devotion. The film also shows that love can be painful precisely because it matters. Noah suffers because he loves Allie. Allie suffers because she loves two people in different ways and cannot choose without causing pain. The older Noah suffers because the woman he loves cannot consistently remember him. Yet the film never suggests that the pain makes the love meaningless. Instead, the pain proves how deeply the relationships matter. This is one of the reasons The Notebook has remained emotionally powerful for many viewers. It recognizes that genuine love does not guarantee a painless life. Sometimes the most meaningful relationships require people to face difficult realities. As Part 5 reaches its emotional conclusion, Allie is closer than ever to making a life-changing decision. The past she tried to leave behind has returned, and Noah has become impossible to ignore. The restored house stands as a symbol of the life they might build together, while Lon represents the life she has already promised herself to. Her choice will not simply determine who she marries, it will determine which version of herself she chooses to become. Noah waits, knowing that he cannot control the outcome. Lon remains committed, believing in the future they planned. The emotional tension is therefore at its highest point. At the same time, the elderly couple's storyline reminds the audience that the consequences of these decisions will extend far beyond youth. The Notebook is waiting to preserve the story of whatever choice they make, and the older Noah's devotion suggests that the true measure of their relationship will ultimately be found not in one romantic summer but in the decades that follow. The Notebook continues to build toward the idea that a lifetime of love is created through countless individual choices, moments of forgiveness, acts of patience, and the courage to remain emotionally honest. Noah and Allie's story is approaching a decisive moment, but the deeper question remains. When time has passed, circumstances have changed, and the future is uncertain, will they still have the courage to choose the love that once changed their lives? The Notebook, 2004, Part 6 Long Review. The emotional pressure surrounding Allie's decision reaches a new level as she realizes that she cannot continue living between two different versions of her future. Noah has given her the freedom to decide, but that freedom also creates a greater responsibility because she must finally accept that her choice will change several lives. For years, Allie believed that the love she shared with Noah belonged to the past. She had built a respectable life, become engaged to Lon, and convinced herself that the memories of her first love were simply beautiful moments from her youth. However, being reunited with Noah proves that the emotional connection was never completely erased. The years apart may have changed them, but they did not destroy what they once felt. Noah's presence forces Allie to examine the difference between remembering someone and still loving someone. A memory can become distant and harmless, but her feelings for Noah are immediate and powerful. This is why her decision becomes so difficult. She is not simply choosing between an old memory and a current relationship, she is choosing between two genuine emotional realities. Lon represents the life Allie has carefully built, while Noah represents the part of herself that she never completely allowed to disappear. The restored house becomes increasingly meaningful during this conflict because it gives Allie a physical image of what a life with Noah could look like. Noah has transformed the old property through patience, hard work, and determination, and the finished house reflects his personality. It is simple compared with the world Allie comes from, but it is filled with personal meaning. Every part of it suggests that Noah has created a life according to his own values rather than according to society's expectations. For Allie, walking through the house is like walking through an alternative future. She can imagine herself there, away from the social pressures that shaped her earlier decisions. The house therefore becomes more than a romantic symbol. It becomes a representation of personal freedom. Noah's dream is no longer only about the past. It can potentially become a future. Yet Allie knows that choosing this future means accepting uncertainty. She would have to leave behind the security associated with Lon and face the consequences of disappointing her family. The movie makes this conflict especially powerful because Noah does not promise that everything will be perfect. He cannot guarantee financial security, social approval, or a problem-free life. What he offers is honesty and the possibility of building a life together based on their own choices. This is fundamentally different from the future Allie has been preparing for. Her relationship with Lon has a clear structure, while a relationship with Noah requires courage. The film therefore explores one of the most difficult questions in romantic relationships. Should a person choose security or emotional truth when the two appear to conflict? There is no universal answer, but Allie's journey suggests that ignoring one's deepest feelings can create a different kind of suffering. Lon's character becomes even more important because he is not portrayed as a villain who deserves to lose Allie. He genuinely loves her, and he believes that their engagement represents a shared future. His love is sincere, which makes Allie's conflict morally complicated. The audience can sympathize with Lon while also understanding why Allie feels drawn toward Noah. This prevents the story from becoming a simple competition where one man is good and the other is bad. Instead, both men represent different possibilities for Allie's life. Noah represents emotional intensity, independence, and the freedom to become the person she truly wants to be. Lon represents stability, social acceptance, and a carefully planned future. Allie has to determine which values matter most to her. Her decision is also influenced by the realization that she has already spent years allowing other people to influence her choices. Her parents played a major role in separating her from Noah, and their social expectations helped shape her engagement to Lon. Now she has an opportunity to make a decision for herself. This is one of the strongest elements of her character development. Young Allie wanted freedom but did not fully understand how difficult freedom could be. Older Allie understands the consequences of independence, yet she also realizes that a life controlled by fear may not be the life she truly wants. Noah's own development parallels hers. He has learned to accept that he cannot control the people he loves. The younger Noah wanted Allie desperately and reacted emotionally when he felt rejected. The older Noah has developed enough maturity to allow Allie to choose. This does not mean he loves her less. In fact, his willingness to let her decide demonstrates how much his understanding of love has changed. He knows that if Allie chooses him, the choice must be genuine. He does not want her to stay because she feels pressured or guilty. He wants her to stay because she believes their relationship is the life she truly wants. This makes his character more emotionally mature and also makes the romance more believable. The chemistry between Noah and Allie continues to be one of the strongest aspects of the film. Their conversations have the energy of two people who know each other's personalities extremely well. They can make each other laugh, frustrate each other, and expose emotional vulnerabilities. Their connection feels lived in because they have a history. The actors communicate this history through expressions and small reactions rather than relying entirely on dramatic dialogue. Noah's quiet confidence contrasts with Allie's uncertainty, creating a dynamic in which each person brings something different to the relationship. Noah reminds Allie of freedom, while Allie brings emotional intensity and spontaneity into Noah's life. Their relationship is powerful because they do not simply complete each other, they challenge each other to become more honest. The story also emphasizes that love does not mean two people always agree. Noah and Allie argue because they are both strong personalities. Their conflicts sometimes reveal insecurities that would remain hidden in a more superficial relationship. The film uses these arguments to show that their connection has depth. They are not pretending to be perfect for one another. They are discovering whether they can accept each other as real people with flaws, fears, and different opinions. This is especially important because their relationship is moving from youthful romance toward adult commitment. Passion can begin a relationship, but understanding and patience are necessary to sustain it. The elderly storyline continues to demonstrate this difference. The older Noah and Allie are no longer living the exciting life of their youth. Their relationship has become quieter and more dependent on patience. The elderly woman's memory loss creates circumstances in which the normal foundations of a relationship are challenged. She cannot always recognize the person who has shared decades of life with her. Yet the older Noah continues to sit beside her, read their story, and offer emotional reassurance. His behavior demonstrates a form of commitment that does not depend on receiving something in return. This is perhaps the purest expression of the film's idea of love. Young Noah and Allie are still asking what love can give them, while the older Noah has reached a point where love is primarily about what he can give. He gives time, patience, attention, and companionship even when recognition is uncertain. This parallel gives the younger romance a greater emotional purpose. The audience sees that their youthful choices may eventually lead to a relationship where love is tested by circumstances far beyond anything they could imagine.